So thank you for inviting me to give this short talk about the luminous landscape of light loggers. And first of all, probably this is not new for many of us, but maybe just to bring us on the same page about the importance of light for humans. We know today that environmental light is the strongest synchronizer, the strongest time giver for the circadian system. And this is probably due to the melanopsin containing retinal ganglion cells, or they play a major role, at least in transmitting this light information to our biological clock, to the SCN. And the SCN in turn is the main conductor of all the physiological rhythms in the body, including the cells, the organs, and so on. And what happens if we have the wrong light at the wrong time? Then these rhythms, then these processes, they all get out of sync, and that can lead to various diseases. And there's actually a very nice overview, a paper from Anna Wirtz-Justice, Deborah Skeen, and Miriam Münch, who summarized these effects if we are exposed to too little daylight. She summarized, or they summarized it in a nice graphical form, in short-term effects, long-term effects, and that includes, for example, diseases like depressions, cardiovascular problems, metabolic disorders, immune defects, and even cancer, including lung cancer. And we know that people, at least the North Americans and the Europeans, spend about 90% of the day indoors under electric light, and that might lead to various diseases, as it is pointed out in this paper. And because I will mention the melanopic EDI, here is a short overview of what it means, of what this measure is. It's basically a measure that describes the light, the melanopic content of a certain light source. And if you have, for example, the daylight spectrum, standardized daylight spectrum for sunlight, and weight it with some sensitivity of melanopsin. And if you have, for example, 1,000 lux of this light, of this daylight, then you will get per definition 1,000 lux of these melanopic EDIs. And then another example for a black body radiator, which has very few blue components. If you weight that spectrum with a sensitivity curve of melanopsin, then you would need approximately double of the amount of the light to also achieve this 1,000 lux melanopic EDI. And as I pointed out before, it seems that melanopic EDI is quite a good measure to predict non-visual effects on humans. It's probably not the only measure or metric, but there are many studies, and this might look a bit overcrowded, but there are many studies, meta-analysis, showing that there is a nice dose response relationship for melanopic EDI and, for example, melatonin suppression, or for pupil constriction, for pupil size, for sleep latency. Here's also a meta-analysis showing the relationship between melanopic EDI and sleep latency, and even for subjective alertness. And that's probably also one of the reasons why the recommendations for indoor light exposures during daytime, evening, and nighttime are relating to this measure, to the melanopic EDI. And they propose to have less than 1 melanopic EDI during the night when you're sleeping, and during the evening, 3 hours before bedtime, they recommend to have less than 10 melanopic EDIs, and during the day, they recommend to have more than 250 lux melanopic EDI. And yet another study or meta-analysis from Marina, where we extracted the data from out of 29 publications, where we extracted the spectra and calculated the alpha-opic EDIs for each photoreceptor. And we also calculated the melatonin suppression. And then we gave this data to a machine learning algorithm and it asked this algorithm, what is the best predictor for melatonin suppression? And this machine learning algorithm also told us that melanopic EDI is the best predictor. And what you can see that it actually works quite well with these recommendations. If you take, for example, the time, this 120 minutes, so if you are exposed for 2 hours in the evening to a certain light, and you only want to achieve, or you don't want to suppress more than 25% melatonin, then you should not go above these 10 melanopic EDIs. But how much would we normally get on a day when we are in the office or outdoors, and how could we assess this? How could we measure this? And this can be done by light loggers or by light measurement devices that are portable or mobile. And you know, these handheld devices, but there are also a lot of wearable light loggers that you can wear at the wrist or around the neck or at the eye. And one of these devices, which is worn near the eye, is the LIDO, the light dosimeter. This has been developed by a team from the University of Applied Sciences, where I'm working now. But this is a team who developed this light logger over the years, funded by the Velux Stiftung, and it's actually also validated by an official meteorological institute, METAS in Switzerland. And here you can see an example of how precise it is compared to a standardized measurement device. And some facts of this portable device: it can measure the 5 alpha-opic EDIs. It can also measure the color temperature, and it also measures the tilt angle, which might be quite helpful. And it records a measurement every 10 seconds, and it measures between approximately 5 lux and 100,000 lux. And the battery lasts for approximately 7 days. And this measurement has been done by Reto, also from HSLU, and he wanted to compare the measurements or the values which you would receive if you wear a wrist-worn device and if you measure near the eye at the head. And you can see that depending on what you measure and in which situations, the difference can be quite tremendous. So it's actually recommended to measure near the eye. And that has also already been mentioned by Miriam München, this publication, that it should be measured near the eye if we want to assess the light effects on humans. But there are not so many devices on the market yet. But I think it's a coming topic. It's that because there's a new joint technical committee, the JTC20, which is addressing wearable light dosimetry, and there's also a European project which aims at providing the scientific and industrial communities with tools for the characterization and use of portable light dosimeters. And there, in this project, we are also assessing current light dosimeters and asking the wearers and also the PIs, the project leaders, and what they experience with these devices and about the usability, and want to find out what improvements are needed. And this is an example of the light dosimeter in the field, measured by Janine Stampfli. And she measured her home office, and she actually only received 195 on average melanopic EDIs at her home office. But what is interesting to see, I think, is when she went for a walk, when she went outdoors, that the average melanopic EDI was 8,300 lux, and going up to above 40,000 lux, around 50,000 lux from time to time. And what you also see is that there are quite some fluctuations when you are outdoors, which is not the case when you are indoors. And these fluctuations I found very interesting. And it was already Rob Lucas in 2012 who said that besides IPRGC, so besides melanopsin, the scene might also receive input from cones at high frequency modulations in irradiance. And these frequency modulations can occur in nature, like, for example, when clouds obscures the sun. And this was also of particular interest in this new study from Isabel Schellhorn. And she investigated this ultradian dynamics in a lab. And she could not find tremendous differences to static light. So there was no improvement of cognitive performance under dynamic light. But what she discovered is that under these dynamic conditions, that the people reported less subjectively experienced effort to do a certain cognitive task. So it's somehow it's also quite obvious that if we are working during the day, we have to fulfill a certain amount of work that is required from us. So we just do it, no matter if it is too hot, if it is too loud, or if there is the wrong lighting. But the effort which we need to fulfill these requirements might be different between the conditions. And that's what she found, that we need less effort, or at least subjectively, we need less effort to do the same task. And this is very new, and it's actually not yet published, but I only show it because it will be published within the next days. This is also work by Isabel Schellhorn, and this is from our study where we investigated metameric display light. And we wanted to see if actually the season played a role, because we conducted the study across, I think it was about 1.5 years. So we conducted the study during the summer month, but also during the winter month. And we retrospectively got the data from Meteorological Institute. This shows the global irradiance on these days where we conducted the studies. And what we had from the participants is the time they spent outdoors. So we could calculate the lux hours, or the lux minutes, the illuminance minutes, during the summer month and during the winter month for the two conditions. So we compared a low melanopic to a high melanopic condition. And you can see that the lux hours were higher during the summer month compared to the winter month. And one major, or I think it was our primary endpoint, was the sleep latency, how long you need to fall asleep in the evening if you are exposed to a low melanopic or a high melanopic condition. We also had other measures, and the other measures did not show any dependency on the season, but this measure, our primary endpoint, showed a difference. So here you can see that during the summer months, there was no difference between the two conditions in sleep latency, or almost no difference. So this is showing the difference between the two conditions, the two lighting conditions. But if you take only the winter month, we could see a significant difference between the two conditions. And that means that it's actually, we believe that it's quite important to know about the light exposure of the participants before they enter to any kind of study. And this is already my conclusion. And thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, you're welcome.
Thank you, Oliver. Interesting presentation, and very relevant, because if you measure, then you know. One of the issues with light, of course, is that people have no clue what kind of light conditions they are. So light loggers are very helpful. Who has a question for Oliver? Any questions or suggestions? Raise your
I could
hand.
ask.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I should find the hand raising. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry.
Okay, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah. You had a very specific health impact listed there. Lung cancer. So, could you provide a little more context around that? That just happened to be what they were studying, or that was one of the negative impacts that they were looking at? Because it's very specific.
Yeah, it was not directly related to light, but it was related to circadian disruption. So they could correlate circadian disruption with the occurrence of lung cancer.
And because in that study that was of interest to them?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know any more details.
Okay. It makes sense if it was a cancer study that found circadian rhythms impacted it, as opposed to a circadian rhythm study that singled out lung cancer.
I'm not sure about that, but I think it was already in 2007 that the World Health Organization said that in general shift work is and increases the probability of cancer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's even lung cancer, so that's quite. I think this is quite interesting. We would not think of lung cancer being related to a disruption of the circadian rhythm, but more to smoking. Also.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's the relation between immune system suppression and lack of sleep, as opposed to lung cancer specifically.
Could be.
Okay. Yeah. Joachim, you raised your hand.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Oliver. Really interesting presentation. I just have two small sort of questions. What was the age group of the individuals you looked at with the sleep latency and seasonality?
18 to 35.
Okay. And the other thing that I was wondering was whether you looked into sort of the other alpha-opic light responses, specifically, I guess, sort of also during nighttime, and whether you saw some interesting stuff there, especially thinking about the data from yourself and Jeminis and also, I guess, Hillary.
Do you mean our specific study on the display light, or do you mean the meta-analysis?
Yeah, so yeah, it's sort of the meta-analysis and also I guess both. And the reason why I'm asking is because we have this tendency to focus a lot on the melanopic EDI, which is of course a really good sort of measure. But the question also becomes, what about the other alpha-opic responses? Do we see them and their importance in the data? Because you could argue that obviously there's a reason why CRE want us to measure on all the photoreceptors.
Yeah, probably there are situations where the melanopic EDI is not the best predictor. It's in our meta-analysis, it was the condition if the photopic lux illuminance was below 21 lux, then the S cones were the better predictor. And then there are other studies out which show that if you expose shorter than 96 minutes, then it's also a combination of some cones that are a better predictor.
But do you then think that we should be better at looking at the alpha-opic input and then the timing of exposure, as Hillary might have alluded to in their study? I think they showed shorter time exposure, then you had a higher input from cones.
I guess we still can't be sure on how they really contribute to each other. It's I mean the IPRGCs, they integrate input from all cones. So, but how this is a field which is still needs more research. We slowly get to know more, but this is probably also a field where the light logging can help if we have much more data wearing this device all day, and then see then do the correlation.
Okay.
Last thing, but do you have sort of ideas about sort of the time intervals that you do the timestamps? What do you find sort of interesting there? I know your team has done some work on that. Do you measure sort of in seconds or minutes, or what's your sort of?
You mean with the light dosimeter?
Yeah.
It measures in 10 seconds intervals.
Okay.
And because it only measures the alpha or big EDIs, the data storage is not so big and the battery usage is very low.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else that has an urgent question, you can always get in touch with Oliver, of course, if you want to have a more detailed discussion. Oliver, I have a small question. Is this light dosimeter also suitable for the larger public, so that you can, big numbers of data, not only for scientific studies, but for, also, would it be helpful to create awareness about the darkness or the lightness which you are living in, actually?
Yeah. Well, currently we have 40 devices, so it's a limited amount of number. But we are trying to improve it, and we are trying to find out what we have to improve. And we have already a new version which looks much nicer than this, which when I showed, which is much lighter, smaller, and yeah.
Okay. Good. Thanks a lot again for a very interesting presentation.